Good afternoon, everyone. All right. You're welcome to the Nigeria Investment Summit. And my name is Funmi Adekboju. I'm the managing partner of Pearl Mutual Consulting. And we're glad to be sponsoring this year's Nigeria Investment Summit. We're going to be having 3 panels. Each of them would be for just about 30 minutes. And after each, because of the fact that we have many panelists, we're going to be giving you the opportunity to ask questions intermittently so that you don't have to wait until after 1.5 hours to be able to ask questions. Another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to have a very short presentation, which is not going to take very long. And thereafter, I will hand over to our panelists to be able to answer a few questions that I have here, and then you can also get to engage with them. First of all, we want to say thank you for coming in for this panel, and we do hope that you have a nice time with us. All right, looking at Nigeria as a country, there's no denying the fact that Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa, and we have the highest level of population in Africa. And we believe that in sub-Saharan Africa, I believe, and it's been said that at least 1 in every 5 Black people are Nigerians. This all goes to the fact that Nigeria cannot be ignored. There isn't really anything you can do with Africa without actually considering Nigeria. In recent times, of course, we all know how it is going. The world economy has been going through quite a lot of challenges, and so Nigeria is not left behind. Inflation is high, we accept. The exchange rate, the Naira has been depreciating against the foreign currencies. Interest rates, of course, like the rest of the world, is also on the increase. And of course, we have a situation where our national debt is also increasing. However, because we are a crude oil producing country, the prices of oil has been quite favorable for Nigeria. Unemployment rate is high at about 33.3%, and it depends on the population that you're looking at. If you're looking at the youth, that percentage goes to above 50%. However, it's not all bad news about Nigeria. Yes, we know that there is pressure on the Naira, and we are not denying that, just like a lot of currencies are seeing depreciation against the dollar. And of course, in the sub-Saharan Africa, this is worst for our own economies, and we have an uptick in inflation. However, some of the things that are currently going on is also working in our favor, like the issues that is currently going on in Russia sees more and more people looking towards alternatives in terms of the gas and crude oil, and even things like fertilizer. And this has seen a lot of positive attention towards Nigeria. The Nigerian NLNG company is currently about to start rolling out what we call the Train 7, I believe, and that is really being, spearheaded by the EU, because they are looking for alternatives to Russia. In terms of agriculture, Nigeria, the commodities that we have in Nigeria, most of those commodities, Nigeria ranks number 1 to 5 in terms of production. However, where we lack capacity is in the area of processing, and those are the areas that businesses in Nigeria will be looking towards more investment in the future. In addition, we've seen very good growth in the technology sector. We're a very youthful economy, so we have a lot of young people, and this has really made technology to do well in Nigeria. We know that there's going to be an election next year, but we do not expect policies to be worse than whatever we have right now. We actually think that the candidates that we have will be able to do even better than what we have right now. We believe that there are quite a number of sectors, apart from the oil and gas sector that I have already mentioned, where investors can look to do quite a lot. Like I've said, there's a lot of opportunities along the agri value chain where investors can actually invest. We have a lot of opportunities in healthcare. We have a lot of opportunities in the finance sector. That sector is also doing very well, especially in terms of fintechs and other technology-based innovations. Manufacturing also has a lot of opportunities. When you consider the fact that you have 200 million Nigerians and counting, you know that whatever it is that you're able to produce within Nigeria, you already have effective demand for it, actually. Of course, our information and communication technology sector is also a very good sector to look at. I don't have so much time, and I don't really want to take up the time from the panelists so much like that. But it depends on who you are. For businesses and for investors, everyone has their own challenges. For the investors that are looking at Nigeria, they are usually afraid of not having enough local context, understanding the market locally. And that's what myself and my panelists are here to give you a better view of, and we believe that we'll be able to answer your questions and make you to feel better dealing with Nigeria. A lot of times, investors are also scared of how to identify the bankable businesses, because it's a different thing for businesses to require funding. It's another thing for them to be bankable. There are services available across the table, and including Pearl Mutual Consulting, to provide all the services that you require, even as you take your decisions. Because of time, I'm going to just say one thing about Pearl Mutual before I hand over to begin to ask questions from all the other panelists. We, in the recent past, we have been able to do some work on the fund management end. We have an in-house retail open-ended fund targeted towards SMEs, and in the last 4 years, we've raised $4 million from high net worth individuals for these businesses. And not only did we raise money for them, we were very particular about the impact of the fund that was raised for these businesses. So over the past 4 years, you can see our footprints on how we've been able to raise funds for these businesses. So you can still talk to Roz about that, because we're actually in the process of raising an institutional fund. So if you would like to talk to us, I'll be able to take your questions afterwards. Myself and my colleague Jumoke are here to be able to answer your questions. And on that note, I would like to introduce my panelists. If you want to, okay, yeah, so it's changed on that side, it's fine. So I'm going to introduce my panelists very briefly. Please, as I introduce them, please just help me clap for them. I'm going to start with Kevin Simmons. Kevin is an experienced angel and venture capital investor who has co-founded several investment networks and syndicates in the US, UK, and Africa. He is now a general partner and Pan-African VC leader for Lofty Inc. Capital Management. Please help me welcome Kevin. Also on the panel, I have Benga Hassan. He is the managing partner of Argentil Capital Management Limited, and he oversees the principal investments, private equity, and asset management business. He has over 25 years experience in private equity, principal investing, and financial advisory. He is also an active investor in SMEs and technology sector in Nigeria and West Africa. Please help me welcome him as well. And then, thank you. I have Ade Buraimo. He is the Group Managing Director, Alpha Morgan Capital, and it's a fast-growing investment banking group in Africa. He has over 30 years of top management experience in commercial and investment banking, treasury management, oil and gas, telecommunications, manufacturing, and the real sector. Please welcome Ade as well. I also have on the team Onyebuchi Obiyemi, who is the Senior Vice President, Investment Banking, Cardinal Stone Partners. She has over 10 years investment banking experience spanning various sectors, including financial services, FMCG, healthcare, and so on. Please help me welcome Onyebuchi. I also have on the panel Banji Feintola, who is a Senior Director, Head of Treasury and Financial Institutions, African Finance Corporation. He is responsible for managing the corporation's balance sheet and total assets of about $4.5 billion and leading the implementation of its annual funding program in the international loan and debt capital markets. Please welcome Banji as well. Then I have Dr. Chinyere Almona. She's the Director General Chief Executive Officer at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the foremost chamber of commerce in the region. She is a governance professional with vast global experience in establishing standards and enhancing investment opportunities for companies. She has led the African Corporate Governance Program in IFC, which provided a wide range of corporate governance reforms over 13 African countries. Please welcome Chinyere. And last but definitely not the least, I also have Olasumbo Olatunji. She is the Group Treasurer, Access Bank PLC. She is a seasoned professional with over 20 to 25 years work experience in the banking industry, and her experience covers liquidity management, treasury, and commercial banking, among other things. She is a executive member of the Access Women Network and an advocate for youth and women empowerment. She is a sought-after speaker in investment conferences and expos. Please welcome Olasumbo for me as well. Without wasting more of our time, I'm going to just go straight into the questions. So I am starting with Dr. Chinyere. Dr. Chinyere, as I introduced earlier, she is from the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, and I believe that she would be a good point to start with this evening. So, Dr. Chinyere, please, in your own opinion, what are the impacts of the current macroeconomic situation, environment on Nigerian businesses, and what should interested investors consider as the main needs of businesses in Nigeria?
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. So when I think of the small businesses and the challenges they face, looking at it from the perspective of my members in the chamber, they are as affected as everyone else within the economy, and issues ranging from security, which affects logistics and everything around it. Issues like Forex affects my members. Inflation is a challenge. As it goes up, the buying power of individuals reduces. Therefore, businesses are less competitive, they're less able to manage in terms of their business output and who will buy. Also, the cost of production isn't reducing. Today, we are thinking AFCFTA and how do we trade across Africa. But because there are challenges with infrastructure, logistics, it's very difficult for my members to then take advantage of the AFCFTA initiative. And even if they were able to take advantage of that initiative, the chance of them being competitive outside Nigeria will be very low, because you have, by the time a business provides power for itself, water, all the other logistics problems, then their cost of production is pretty high. However, I believe that where we are today in Nigeria and the challenges we are facing does provide some opportunities for investment, because everyone is saying, I'm glad I'm in this conference, so I see a lot of investors who are interested in Africa. That means there's a lot of funds available for businesses in Nigeria. However, sometimes it's very difficult to access the available fund, either because we haven't, businesses are not well structured to attract the funding, or not well positioned to attract the funding. And because we need to provide investors with some level of confidence that if you bring in your fund, if you invest in this business, you get some return, which is what every investor wants. I believe that there needs to be a match between what an investor is looking for and what we can provide.
Thank you.
Well, just one more point. So one more thing that's important that investors need would be business information, getting the right information at the right levels. And at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, we are structured by sectors, and therefore the Chamber provides an opportunity for investors to have credible business information to conduct their businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Kevin, over to you. Based on your experience with investment in Nigeria, what advice would you give to investors that are worried about Naira depreciation and currency repatriation?
Thank you very much. I know we're short on time, so I'll try to be brief. Although this is a very, this can be a very expanded conversation. But in terms of advice to investors who are worried about depreciating Naira, there are a number of different ways to look at it. The first is, I would say, from a company perspective, the companies that we invest in, it is a concern. It is an extreme challenge to deal with because largely, we're investing in companies quite different from many of the companies that people invest in on stage, but companies that we hope to be transformative and globally transformative. And many of these companies have a Delaware domicile or something that, in essence, rolls up their financials to a U.S. entity, and they're valued in U.S. dollars. And so if you're transacting and doing your underlying business in Naira, and you find that, the Naira is depreciating so quickly, you quickly have a situation where you may sell twice as much the next year, and it looks like you're standing still, which, and our business in venture, the venture asset class is a growth asset class. I mean, if there's no growth, there is no venture investment, there is no venture outcome. And so it is a concern for companies. That said, I think it's important to keep the context of why we, and investors like ourselves, are invested in Nigeria and in places. And that's just to wrap it quickly, it's kind of the macroeconomic picture. And there's a maxim that goes, the market always wins. And what we see as a market is, again, we're looking at companies that are not just to be Nigerian companies, but continental companies and global companies. The kind of products that you engage with, that once you've engaged with them, you think, why did I ever do anything different? And from that perspective, we take the view that the macroeconomic picture or potential of Nigeria and Africa as a whole is so strong. A continent of 1.3 billion people, you can't bet against that. So even if in the short term there's this extreme currency risk, we have that conversation with our investors and our LPs that we're talking about a 10-year or 10 plus 2-year horizon. And so we try to not make short-term financial decisions on a long-term picture. So we think the long-term outlook of Nigeria is so strong that despite the currency exposure, it's still a great place for investment.
Thank you so much. And then I move over to you, Olasumbo. As a treasurer, we all accept the fact that interest rate is rising globally as it is in Nigeria. What is your opinion on the direction of interest rates? And how would your organization's global reach or reach help investors?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Like we all know, Nigeria is not immune for what's been happening globally. We can see with commodity prices that have gone up, and also locally we have our own issues with low oil production. We have flooding and all that's going on. And basically what has happened is that it has affected our exchange rates and also our interest rates and inflation. We have inflation at its highest levels at 20.52, which is the highest in 17 years. When you look at the 2023 budget, inflation is pegged at 17.16, which means that we still see this going on. The federal government, the central bank is trying to ensure that they combat inflation and all that. So we've seen MPR at the last September meeting, it went up to 15.5, and they've raised rates several times this year. And we expect that at the next meeting in November, that would still go up. So definitely Nigeria is not left alone. We're still going to toe what has been happening globally, and I still think we're still going to see interest rates rise, as a result of which we're also going to see both deposit and lending rates go up. In fact, deposit rates are about 17%, so it's left to see where lending rates would be. However, that's what I see going on now, and that's what we expect to continue to happen. For us as Access Bank, we've traditionally positioned ourselves as a gateway to bring in funds into Nigeria. We're the first bank to issue the green bond. We also issued the perpetual bond, Euro bond last year, which was hugely oversubscribed. And with our fortress balance sheet of over $13 billion, definitely we're ready to take on lending and all other activities. So yes, we're ready to help any investors facilitate whatever business they want to do in Nigeria. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And then, Gbenga, I come to you. For this particular panel, I'm going to add 5 minutes to this panel and take it from the next one. Sorry, we're still in control of the panels. Thank you, because it's the very first one. Thank you for bearing with us. So Gbenga, over to you. As an ardent investor, what are the industries that you think we should watch out for in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, no, thanks. I'll just jump into it. So I think we've already spoken about technology. Nigeria generally, I think between 2016 to 2021, has received the largest share of venture funding that has gone into Africa. I believe in half year 2020, AFCA, which is the African body for venture and private equity, has said that about 3.5 billion has come into Africa, of which West Africa has taken the largest share, and Nigeria being that. So we continue to see that ecosystem continue to be a good space for investors. We also think the consumer space, I believe, has already been mentioned, we are a large growing population. The average age of Nigerians, I think, is somewhere about 18. So we're a very young population, and that is going to continue. So in that space, we definitely see consumer, FMCG, and also healthcare. If COVID has shown us anything, is basically we need to have the healthcare facilities in country to ensure that when people fall ill, they can be cured. Agribusiness is a huge space, currently contributes about 26% of our GDP. We need to feed our population again. Currently, our gap between food imports is about $5 billion per annum. So there is a lot of opportunity for import substitution across the agri value chain. The other sector we see is energy. Traditionally away from the traditional oil, which Nigeria has been known for. We think there's huge opportunities to support the energy transition. I think we've talked about gas, the need to supply as an alternative supplier to Europe has been highlighted, and we think that there's going to be quite some investment in that. But also the clean energy. Nigeria has a plan to, I think by 2060, to be net zero. Part of that strategy is going to require significant investments in renewables. If anybody knows Nigeria, probably 95% of us all have generators in our businesses or in what we do. And so there's going to be significant growth opportunities to sort of invest in off-grid solutions. And we've seen some of the earlier investments in companies like Starlight, and recently there was another one that was sold to Shell. forgotten the name right now. So we see those opportunities being able to scale up significantly because of the need to provide off-grid solutions to a lot of homes and businesses. So I think basically the glass is half full. The opportunities are there, and there's significant opportunities for people who come in now.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So I come to you, Onyebuchi. You are in the private equity space. Why would you say that Nigeria is a good market for private equity investors?
Okay, I was speaking from the standpoint of an advisor. I'd like to say a lot has been said about the sectors where we think there are a lot of opportunities. I'll just highlight two things. I think two things. I think one, from the conference up until now, we've heard the thing about opportunities for exits for private equity investors. Yes, we don't have a deep pool of, let's say, opportunities for IPOs that happen in public markets and all. But I think also what investors need to understand in Nigeria is that we're still at the nascent phase. We're still at the evolving phase, growing phase. Unlike, well, developed markets where you probably see year-on-year growth. I'm talking about fundamentals at company levels. You will see growth of 10 to 20% on many companies. And that just tries to tell you that while an average investor may do a 5 to 8 year tenure of investment in an opportunity, by the time another investor is coming to take that on as a secondary sale, there's still the significant upside. So that's one thing our investors need to understand, that while we're trying to deepen our capital markets, at the fundamentals from the company level, there's still a lot of room for growth. I think the other thing also is it may be helpful for investors to start to think about partnering with advisors that are on ground. I say because I've been at this event and I've spoken to many people and they will tell me, I'm looking at X company, Y, and I'm like, there are only less than 200 companies on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And we have over 1,000 companies that are doing great work. When you go to the industrial areas, just in Lagos and Ogun State, you will see companies that are doing things that are very important to support infrastructure development across different sectors. So I think that those are the two things I'll just say. There's still opportunity for even private equity investors to achieve exits through secondary sales. And I think the second thing is also that you need to partner with investors on ground, because we work with the mid-market companies. We understand that space better, and then we can help you stand as aggregators of investment opportunities and also to help you support exits as well.
Thank you so much. And the last question will go to Banji. Banji, what guidance or advice do you have for DFIs interested in investing in Nigeria?
Well, thank you. It's always good to speak last, because everybody has said everything I wanted to say, so I'll just try and say a few more things. I work with AFC, Africa Finance Corporation, and for people who know the history of AFC, Nigeria was the primary promoter of AFC at the beginning, and that's not unusual because, again, they did the same for African Development Bank and Afrexim and other multilaterals. So Nigeria is very important to all of us. You know, the only way Africa will rise is if Nigeria rises. And I think everybody needs to accept that. So for us, we've invested a lot in Nigeria as well as the rest of the continent. And if you ask me as a DFI, why, how have we survived in Nigeria? A couple of things. One, long term, I think it was Kevin that made that point. If you're investing for 4-year cycles, maybe Africa is not for you. You should think very long term. I meet investors who say every 4 years you want to run out, there's an election, you run out, you run back, run out, run back. It doesn't work. You have to take a very long-term view, and that's what we've done. Secondly, I think people need to be very innovative. We've done a lot in Nigeria, despite the challenging operating environment, by simply putting on our thinking hats and being innovative. We've done a lot on the guarantee side. We've done things off balance sheet, on balance sheet. We've done all sorts of investments that really catalyze growth in the country, simply by not being a traditional financier who doesn't think multiple products, but you're just thinking one solution. Several solutions would work. And last but not the least for me is, if we're waiting for the right environment before we invest, we will never invest. That's just the reality. So we do spend a lot of time on policy advisory, working with governments, helping them to think differently. And that's the only way we can shape the environment that is conducive for all of us to invest in. So those three things have worked for us: innovation, partnership, policy advisory, and more importantly, think very long term. And
Thank you.
generally, you will not go wrong.
Thank you so much. Actually, I omitted someone. It was an error, but I think it was sort of the best thing because that question is actually supposed to be the last. So Ade, I come to you. How do you see the investment environment in 2023? Do you expect it to be favorable for investors? Thank you.
Good afternoon once again. I work for a company called Alpha Morgan Capital. 2021, early this year, we were rated as one of the fastest growing companies in Africa. Specifically, we're actually 22, in Nigeria 14. Why am I saying this? To some people, 2021 was really a bad year. But we are very excited about 2023 in Nigeria. To us, it's going to be a year of bumper harvest. I will take you through. We are going into an election. There's going to be a change of government. Either of the three contending leaders, it is a win for us. It's a win for you as an investor. The policy is going to change, the direction is going to change, and everything is going to change positively. I can assure you that to us, in Alpha Morgan, we do traditional asset management. We do fixed income, Euro bond, federal government bond. We do equity trading and land banking. 2023 is going to be a very good year.
Thank you.
We believe that the dollar is overpriced in Nigeria as a result of something we can call the trust in the managers. The moment that is taken away, our value of our currency will take a normal position. The assets are actually low price now. This is the time to come in, and by next year, you are going to have two upsides. One, exchange gain, and two, value appreciation of the underlying asset.
Thank
I want to
you
thank you
so
so much, and I
much.
welcome you to Nigeria.
All right, so please help me clap for these wonderful panelists. Unfortunately, because our time is gone, we're not going to be able to take questions, but they are going to be seated amongst you, so please do engage with them as we continue. We need to go to the second panel. Thank you so much, everyone. Please help me clap for them. Please don't step out. We are going to be talking more about Nigeria investment opportunities. That's the second panel we have. And the third panel is on infrastructure. So please do stick with us. We have wonderful panels coming up.